The Undead Celluloid Society welcomes you into another podcast. My name is Michael,
And I'm Rachel.
and today we are covering the 2014 film As Above, So Below. This actually starts the first of three other films we're going to do during this month for Found Footage February. As the title kind of states, we're going to do a different found footage movie each week this month. So, As Above, So Below is a film that is about a art. She's basically an archaeologist. I'm just going to call her an archaeologist. She's got a lot of different degrees. This lady is looking for the Philosopher's Stone, not the Sorcerer's Stone, for you American Harry Potter fans out there. But she is looking for the Philosopher's Stone, which she has deemed, or which through her research and studies, she has found out that is in the catacombs of Paris. She drags along a couple of other unwilling participants into this journey of hers. They end up getting trapped down there. Shockingly, it is it's hell. Basically, they're in hell. Spoiler alert. And they must overcome a bunch of different trials, and will they or won't they make it out? Going to be honest with you, I remember very well when this trailer came out, and I watched it. It played a lot of the stuff, like the piano scene, showed a little bit of the car scene when they get trapped, and then it like had the abandoned all hope you enter here into that, and I was thinking they're dead. Who enters the gates of hell in a found footage movie of all things, which, as you know, we'll find out. Most of the time, most of the people die. I was thinking they were all going to get killed. Had no interest in the film whatsoever whenever I first saw the trailer. Then I've watched it a couple of times. I'll get into what I think about the movie after that, but let's say that I didn't hate it as much. But yeah, so that's the premise, kind of the film. Traditional found footage in the sense that you get the shaky cam. I will say the camera quality was really good. That might have to do with their higher budget. But yeah, we'll get into a little bit more of that. I think the budget for this was $5 to $10 million.
Yeah, that's what, when I looked it up, it was just estimated between 5 and 10, but so still low budget.
Yeah, still hits our low budget threshold according to Google. $15 million is anything below that is low budget. And if you really think about it, when it comes to cost of like cameras and things like that, $5 billion, not a lot.
Yeah, no, and then paying everybody, I guess.
I can't even imagine how much these actors made on this. Not enough, especially Benji.
Yeah, no, poor Benji.
Yeah, so we'll get into it now. We'll get into our thoughts. Rachel, tell me some of your thoughts. Tell me some highlights of the film for you. Tell me some lowlights. Tell me what you hated, what you loved. What's going on in that head of yours?
So at first, I thought this was going to be very much kind of like a found footage Tomb Raider, right?
Yeah.
Of all, she goes through, she's looking for all this historical evidence on the Philosopher's Stone. Her dad was the one who got her into it, which, follows the whole Lara Croft line. But then, so it wasn't very scary at first. It just kind of went through her getting the information, and then they enter the catacombs, and all this weird, like, I don't know, I felt like a lot of it was so random. Like the naked women. Oh, before that, when they were in the club and Benji sees that girl walk out of the club, and then she's staring at him the whole time, and then she ends up being in the catacombs singing in another language with all these other naked women, and then she just looks at him. That it literally goes into nothing about that. there's a lot of things that were not explained, and I don't know if you have to know some backstory about the gates of hell, or like we were talking before, not Dante's Inferno.
The Divine Comedy.
Yeah. Which I know nothing about, but there was just one of the things I didn't like was just all the randomness.
So I can answer that for you if you like, just to interject into
absolutely.
a thought for that. What Rachel was referencing is this film is loosely kind of based on Dante's Divine Comedy. That's a Italian poet in the 1500s. A lot of you might be more familiar with Dante's Inferno. The story is basically Dante's lover gets sent into hell, and he must go through 9 gates of hell to rescue her. As above, so below. That's how they get out. That's the very rough notes gist of it, just so you guys know. But all right, so as we're delving fully into spoilers now, if you remember, Rachel, they were Scarlett's character mentioned that you had to be tested, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And each of them had to kind of go through a trial. Like George had his brother with his brother. Papillon had the guy that died in the car crash. Scarlett had her dad.
And not picking up the phone.
Not picking up the phone, and the night he died. What I have gathered, and I think the problem is that Benji doesn't react in the earlier scenes when he should have. Benji meets his death because he sees that girl again with a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So my feeling is that he had a similar circumstance to the character Zed, where he has a child with someone,
mm-hmm.
doesn't acknowledge it. Maybe they died because that lady showed up with a baby, and that's what killed Benji. He never acknowledged it. He never atoned for it.
Okay.
So that lady showing up in random spots is part of the draw into the catacombs. Because if you remember, at the very beginning of the movie, Scarlett sees her dad hanging when she's in Iran.
You're right.
So I think that that's what it is.
It's almost like hell knows they're coming, or it's just foreshadowing.
It's foreshadowing that, like, they're going to be tested.
Okay, yeah, and she kept saying, "Shit, you have to rectify yourself." And there goes a car alarm. Is that your car?
I don't know. Technical difficulties, guys. No, it's not. All right, we're good. Sorry, you guys might have heard a car alarm in the background. That was not us.
But okay, so I guess that kind of makes sense. What I liked the literal sense of as above, so below. So how they go into the catacombs to get out, they have to do everything in reverse.
Yeah, they have to climb down.
Yeah, they have to climb down, which is actually them climbing up. So I did like that take on the as above, so below. The I don't even know what there are, demons that bit George in the neck, like when he almost died. Those are random, and then Scarlett just freaking strong arms them in the head when she walks by like they're nothing.
She does beat the shit out of them. It's kind of funny.
But that was really random. The smoke guy in the cape and the hood, like that was, I don't know. There's just a lot of randomness for me. But I did, I did like the jump scares. Just I'm a jump scare person, but Anna might be easily scared because from all of the the critical reviews that we read through, people were not impressed with the thrill aspect of it, but I actually did like that. Like I said, besides the randomness, in the moment, I did really enjoy that. I too, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna watch this. Like, it just didn't seem. It wasn't eye catching. I don't know.
Right.
It was, and honestly, the trailer, I don't. feel like the trailer even really touched on what the movie was really about.
No, it just had a bunch of scares and gaps in it. You didn't know what was going on. Didn't know what was happening the whole time.
Yeah.
And they were kind of getting picked off in the trailer a little bit too. Like you didn't know the characters, so you didn't know who was dying. But it's like, how are these people going to survive going to hell?
Yeah.
Come on.
I feel like the vibe of the trailer was completely different, at least in my, perspective. The vibe of the trailer was not on par with the vibe of the movie.
I agree.
Like it was a scary movie, like a horror movie, but I feel like the movie was more of not so much of a horror thriller, but more of like a almost like a
adventure.
Yeah, an adventure historian. Uh, uh, yes, adventure. I can't think of the word right now, but so I think if as far as the horror aspect of it, they could have done a lot more. So that fell flat for me. I think if they would have actually taken it in a different direction, I know the directors wanted it, to be a found footage like horror film, but I feel like they could have taken it more into the historical adventuring side, and it could have turned out to be like a great movie.
Well,
if they left all of the like the jump scares and the monsters out, like the horror aspects of it,
right.
I feel like it could have been like a really, really great adventure type movie. But I mean, all in all, I didn't hate it. So yeah.
So interesting that you say that. Because like you said, about the adventure part, that they were trying to make an Indiana Jones found footage horror movie. And
you're right, it did say that.
And I think that they kind of succeed. Scarlett is very push forward, and she's not. She's very adventurous. She is overly qualified for her role. She is she's a badass. She's a really good. I think, in my opinion, she's a really good female protagonist. She's not.
Yeah.
She's not a weak character. She's very supportive to like the people around her. She's not like one of those traditional badass girls in the sense that we have to make this girl so badass that she doesn't have empathy for people, that she's just like gung ho,
Just
like
a strong arm,
hates herself or hates everyone around her, that kind of thing. She's a very strong character in the sense that she legitimately cares about the people around her. She's regretful of the decisions that she's made in the past. Like there's a lot of like growth in her character. You see that. I think that there's a lot of growth in her character, especially towards the end, where she acknowledges her father dying.
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with the growth part though, because like I feel like maybe that's just intrinsically who she is. She's so smart. She realizes, the vitriol, the alchemist's basically phrase is you have to rectify yourself in hell in order to escape.
Yeah, but I think that you have to be authentic about it. I don't think it would have allowed her to not otherwise. It's kind of it's how I'm reading the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She uses people is in the beginning of the movie. Like she used George. She got him stuck in a prison in Turkey.
Yeah.
Which it's really funny when they first meet. She's like, he's like, you got me in prison in Turkey. And she's like, well, it was more like a jail. And he's like, yeah, jail in Turkey.
Like it's still a big deal.
And then she left him there. Like she left the country.
Yeah.
She didn't.
Yeah, she just up and leaves him in a foreign prison.
And then we already mentioned that she didn't pick up the phone the night her dad committed suicide, which, I mean, granted, no one's she said later she didn't know.
Right, yeah.
But she seems very self-centered about finding this goal. Like, it was her dad's goal, but it seemed like she very appropriated that for herself to have that goal. And I think that as the movie goes on, she starts to put others before herself more as the film goes on, because she drags George into the tunnels.
Well,
I almost
basically.
said the jungle, George of the jungle. Yeah. But she drags George into the tunnels. He does not want to be there
Right,
at
but
all.
then the cops come and he's kind
Yeah.
of forced into going.
He gets stuck. Yeah. But she, I do, in my opinion, this is the hill I'm going to die on for that. She does have a lot of growth. I think that she is a really good female character, a female lead. I also think that George's actor looks like Robert Downey Jr. when he was like 20.
Yeah, he kind of does, actually.
They got the same facial hair. That guy, his name is escaping me right now, but he's been in a lot of stuff. He was in the Friday the 13th. I think Feldman is his last name. Rachel is Googling this at the moment. We're a very professional podcast.
Ben Feldman.
Ben Feldman. I was going to say that. I did not want to say that because I didn't want to be wrong. But Ben Feldman, he's been in a lot of stuff. He was actually, notably, was in another found footage movie 5 years prior to this, Cloverfield.
Oh, yeah, he was. I never watched that movie.
We'll watch it next year for found footage February.
Okay.
But yeah, Ben, he was also in Friday the 13th, the reboot. So Ben Feldman's been in a couple of horror movies. Good. I thought he was great. You could clearly tell that he was in love with Scarlett the whole time. Like, didn't want to do his thing, but he did a good job of playing it off, in a realistic way.
Yeah, and I like how they didn't focus on that. Like, there was a few moments between them, but I like that they didn't turn it. They didn't focus on that, you know.
Yeah. It wasn't a love story,
right?
But there was love in it. She does kiss him at the end when she's resurrecting him.
Right. Yeah. But one of the critics said that, you know, it was a really great movie to start, and then the ending just like kind of turned cheesy. And I'm wondering if it's, you know, because that moment they had where he was like, you know, no matter what happens, that week in Turkey was the best week of my life. And she says, yeah, mine too. So I'm wondering if the addition of few romance scenes was kind of what got some of those critics to be like, yeah, it kind of fell flat at the end there.
I think that, but I also think when Scarlett goes back, puts the stone back, and then realizes that the stone, after you do the trial, is inside of you, kind of thing. That, I'm thinking, is also a big factor to the cheesiness of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because it's like, because they escape hell at the end. Scarlett, George, and Zed of all people.
Yeah,
one of the guys that should have died at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, barely had a role in this movie.
Yeah, like I mean, if anything, if you're gonna make one of the French explorers survive, why not Papillon? The guy that spoke the most. Yeah, right.
Or well, no, Susie didn't really speak.
Susie had a couple of lines. She didn't have a lot.
No. But yeah, Papillon. Like,
he gets killed, but he denied But when his test came up, he denied it. He said it wasn't his fault.
You're right.
Until he gets pulled into the ground.
You're right.
Impressive for production for this film. They filmed in the Parisian catacombs. That was not a set.
For 4 months, right?
Yep. They were in the actual catacombs below Paris.
And it was the first movie to be authorized. Yeah.
Because it's off limits. You're not allowed to go down there unless you're like going on a tour or something. Very, very impressive. A lot of that's practical. They also said that the main entrance was by a hospital, so they'd be like covered in like a bunch of blood and stuff, going through a hospital parking lot, drinking coffee.
Yeah.
I respect that.
And so this this has nothing to do with what we were just talking about, but I was just thinking about it. Benji's character.
Yes.
So how in the synopsis that we were reading.
Oh, how they fucking call him out.
Yeah, so they call him out, the actor, who is Edwin Hodge. They call him out, not by name.
Yeah, they refused to name him, but they explicitly said who it was.
Yeah, basically, because they're saying that they tested all of the actors beforehand for claustrophobia because they were going to be in the catacombs and all of these tight spaces. And then they make mention of, there was one actor who did say that they're claustrophobic, and the most memorable scene of claustrophobia was Benji, and they said it was an authentic reaction, like he was actually having like a panic attack, and it really helped develop that scene. So I liked that, although it probably sucked to be him at that moment.
Yeah, it did. But it is so funny to read that and be like, we're not going to say who it is. And then it's like, yeah, he had a legitimate moment of claustrophobia during the thing. And it's like, we know who it is. Like, he had like a whole 5-minute scene of freaking out and hyperventilating.
Yeah, just say it.
If for some reason it comes out in the future that it was Ben Feldman that had, because he does have a moment of claustrophobia early on because his brother drowned in the cave. Right. If it comes out later that Ben Feldman had that and it wasn't Benji's character, that guy deserves a fucking Oscar.
Right?
Because he played, because it has to be him.
I was getting anxiety.
I'm not claustrophobic, and I was like,
yeah, you did start breathing really hard.
Yeah, because he's stuck, and like he freaks out, which you would if you were stuck between bones and a limestone wall.
Yeah, and I mean, I do have slight claustrophobia, and I was like on the edge of the couch, like freaking out, because I'm like, I couldn't even imagine. And I was in my head, I'm like, just get out, just go. You got this.
That was one thing I was going to mention to you, but I wanted to save it for the podcast. Why didn't they just dig all the bones out in the first place? Like, they were like a bunch of bones caged in there, just drag them all out.
I don't know if it was because
you're the engineer here. I don't know.
Well, he mentioned like you have, like, when you're Papillon mentioned, like, when you're crawling through there, keep your hands like up in an awkward position so that you don't
get cut by the bones.
So maybe it was like more of a like safety issue. I don't know. But also, when they did start moving the bones, the tunnel they were crawling through collapsed.
Yeah, so maybe that's why I'm thinking maybe if they would have dug all the bones out, the wall would have collapsed right there.
Yeah.
Then they would have never had to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, and they said they've gone through there before, so.
They did, yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking it was because of that.
Speaking of which, in terms of acting, Papillon's actor was great. Like, he did a really good job of portraying like a confused, scared man. Like, Papillon's character is their guide through the tunnels. He's been through there a lot. He's tagged a bunch of stuff in there, and he's been in there more than anybody. Scarlett gets recommended to him by a ghost. Yeah, because I got his spears.
That was actually Papillon's brother.
That wasn't Latoop, was it?
No, not Latoop. The guy who was sitting when they were going through the tunnels on the actual tour.
Yeah, the tour itself.
The guy who was sitting there and then disappeared, that was Papillon's brother.
Was it actually?
Yes.
I didn't catch that.
Michael, you've seen it so many more times than
I know. I told you there's stuff that you missed.
Yeah, no, that was definitely Papillon's brother. They had the same hair.
That had to be. You're right. Yeah, that's a good point. But the
foreshadowing.
He's the one that suggests they get Papillon.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that the lady, not to go on a tangent, that's why I think the lady that walks by Benji several times has to be like his ex-girlfriend or something.
And that's why he keeps noticing.
That's why he keeps seeing her.
Maybe.
And she has a baby with her the last time on a jump scare.
Maybe her and the baby died.
That's what I'm thinking. They had to have died because they're ghosts.
Right, yeah, and everyone who shows up has actually died.
Yeah, and the interesting... going off on a tangent here, we'll go back to Papillon. I think that's also the reason why we never actually see George's brother. George doesn't deny his involvement in his brother's death. He regrets it. But he doesn't admit that he got lost on the way back. That's his regret. It's you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like he could have saved his brother, but his brother's not showing up. It's because the regret is in getting lost on the way back.
But he did show up when they're walking.
I don't remember seeing George. Oh, was that he was. Yeah, he was there.
Yeah,
his face was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he was there. So I stand corrected.
I retract that.
I retract that statement. But Papillon's character, now that we've got that little backstory out of the way, he does a really good job of portraying like being confused and scared, like in situations where you would be confused and scared, in my opinion. Like they want to go through that one door, and he's like, no, people don't go through that way. And then he tells them the story about Latoupe and how that guy lived in the mine, or lived in the tunnels basically, and he's like, he went through there one time, never came back out, and that was enough for him.
Yeah.
And then they go through where the bones are on the opposite side, and it's supposed to be a straight line to where they're going, and they see that door, and it's like, no, this is not supposed to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, yeah, the acting of everyone is phenomenal.
I thought so too. And then when Latoupe shows up and like kind of guides them, he's kind of like I want to say he's like a specter in a sense, because his eyes are really black.
Mm-hmm.
Teleports all over the place. And when they're following him, they're like, should we be following this guy? And he's like, I don't know. He's different now. Yeah. Like that seemed real to me. Like that was pretty good acting. I think the most important thing to take away from the film, in my perspective, is that a lot of the stuff that kind of went over our heads, from what I've seen and like research I've done, is if you're familiar with the Divine Comedy, it makes more sense. Mm-hmm. If you're familiar with Femelle Stone, it makes more sense. So if you have done your research and you've read that, like I would recommend reading Dante's Divine Comedy, doing research on Nicholas Flamel before you watch this film. Otherwise, if you go in completely blank, you don't know what the Philosopher's Stone is at all, you don't know about the 9 Circles of Hell and Dante's Divine Comedy, you're going to be lost. You're not going to know what's going on. Yeah. That kind of circles back to what you said about the guy sitting on the wooden chair and standing up in smoke. From what I've seen, that's supposed to be the devil. Oh. That's why he's on that chair. That's his throne. Okay. In hell. And he's rising up. And so I'm assuming that there's other things that attack George are demons.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Because each circle...
That would make sense though, because on the floor that they see him on, that's when they start going back up, technically.
Yes, yeah, that's the last floor. After that, they're back in Paris. Yeah. Each floor represents something different. So, like, there's a floor for like greed. There's a floor for different things that are different trials of different things. Like when they see that treasure, they try to break into it, and Scarlett's telling them that it's a trap. Right. They don't listen, and then the cave collapses above them. So there's a lot. I would definitely recommend, at least if you're not the studious sort, just read the Wikipedia article on Dante's Divine Comedy. Read a Wikipedia article on Nicholas Flamel. Shout to Wikipedia, by the way. Didn't donate to you guys that $2.14 that you wanted, but I love you all the same. This is a shout out from us, from here at the Undead Celluloid Society. But I would definitely recommend doing a little bit of research before watching the film. I know people don't like to hear that. I got to read something before I watch this movie.
Yeah.
But
especially because the movie makes reference to Nicholas Flamel, but not
it does nothing to the Divine Comedy.
no
Doesn't
or the
mention
9
it.
levels of hell.
Doesn't mention it all. I
Well, I
mean,
guess it does. They talk
the
about
gates of hell.
but that's about it.
But yeah, so definitely recommend looking. Just do a quick Wikipedia read. You'll like the movie a lot more than if you didn't.
It'll make a lot more sense.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts on it. The last thing I'll say, I really like this movie. I think it was a really good adventure found footage thriller. I'm also a big fan of found footage.
Yes, you
So
are.
Rachel is not.
As far as found footage goes, I would say that this wasn't bad. It wasn't. There were and I understand it goes along with the found footage genre. The glitchy cameras, and
we didn't really have that much glitchiness.
there was like 2 scenes when it is always when they're running away from something.
Yeah, I think it was when they got deeper into hell too, right?
No. When they were running.
Oh, when he steps in the water too, the muffled sound.
Yeah,
that
was cool.
That was cool. So when they're walking across this tunnel, and George accidentally steps in the water, there's like 2 like little
Ledges.
narrow ledges that you can walk on, and there's like a puddle of water in the center, and George accidentally falls into it, and it's like up to his knees, but it turns into this like deafening muffling sound, like you have water in your ears and you can't like get it out, like you can't hear anything, like they're underwater or something, and they all notice it. It's not something that's just us.
Yeah,
the rest of them notice it too.
Mm-hmm. And then the alarm goes off, and I wonder if that is what triggers their testing.
No, I think that they were being tested as soon as they got into those tunnels, to be honest. Just because when they crawl through that first tunnel,
that's true.
That tunnel's there. There's nowhere else they can go. They have to go through there.
That is true.
I think that their decision to finally go into the tunnels is what kind of brought them into it. But, honestly, acting, great, my opinion.
Great, yes.
Production, sets, things like that, fantastic.
I mean, yeah, you can't beat being in the actual catacombs.
Yeah, they actually filmed where they shot, which is rare. Some films would just have done that on a green screen.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. So those 2 things
didn't have the money. top
tier for it. Yeah, right. I mean, $5 million you would think goes a long way. Really, kind of doesn't.
No, not in the film industry.
The devil looked pretty weak.
Yeah, he did. You see his face like for a split second.
It's like a stone face.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just like in a black cape and black hood, and he's got smoke coming out, almost like Hades.
Yeah, pretty lame. Yeah, he's got lame design. I will say though, production, acting, great. If I made a movie with those 2 things, fantastic. The only thing I would change, some of the effects, some of the pacing. The pacing is great for the most part, but there's at one point where Scarlett has to backtrack all the way back up, and instead of, it makes the movie seem kind of redundant because she gets back to the very beginning like in like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. Maybe
that's because that was like they were waiting for her test of her dad. I don't know.
They are, but it should have taken her a lot longer to get back to where she was, because she literally gets back to the beginning in like a second, and we spend the whole movie getting down to that tunnel.
Yeah, that's true.
So that pacing, that's not consistent with the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
they check through the tunnels pretty fast, but not that fast.
Right. But there were more of them though. She was just by herself.
That's true, and she knew where she was going. But still, like she had to like climb up a bunch of giant tunnels and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll agree with you. The pacing on that was way too fast.
Pacing at the end was a little consistent. The beginning of the part, good. I thought The problem with most found footage films is that they try to drag on at the beginning, trying to get you to care about the characters, and at the end, you don't care about the characters.
Half of them are dead.
Yeah, I cared about the characters. I thought they were really good. I thought they
Mm-hmm.
were well done, and I thought that we also didn't linger on BS for a long time. It was going where it needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my kind of thoughts on it. So now, after our extended thing, Rachel says shoot because she always struggles thinking of her vacation.
Freaking rating.
We are going to go into our rating system for what we think. I will go first, Rachel. Don't you worry.
I can't.
But we're going to go into our rating system now of what we thought of as above, so below.
All right, Michael.
So, what did I think of this film? The vacation I will kind of compare it to is, how about a trip to Paris?
Well, you said that you would never go.
I said I would never go to Paris, but I also said I'd never watched this movie when I saw the trailer.
That's true.
So I will compare it to a trip to Paris, saying that, initial reaction, wouldn't go. Maybe if I go, I'll have a good time. Maybe not the best of times, but a decent enough time that it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
My trip to Vegas, kind of similar this last week. Oh, speaking of which, guys, I went to Vegas for my birthday. Great time for the most part, but super expensive. That's the drawback. Don't recommend going there if you're broke. So maybe I'll just go with that. Trip to Vegas, good time, but there is a big drawback when it comes to the financial part.
Mm-hmm.
So go into this movie with the expectations. Don't go into the expectation that you're going to hate it, because you're not going to hate it, in my opinion. I think that you're not going to get as much out of it as the movie wants you to get out of it.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going to go with my Vegas trip. Go with high expectations, come back kind of mid.
Okay. Shoot. Okay, so my vacation. I would have to say, oh gosh, I honestly don't even know. Going on a road trip through, like, the middle of America.
Like Western America?
No, not West, like middle of America, like Oklahoma. I'm blanking on my geography right now, but everything like above Texas, kind of that way.
Oh, driving just straight up from Texas?
Sure, we'll go with that. There's Tornado Valley. There's not Wyoming. There's not a lot going on around there. You don't really want to go, but you do it for the FOMO, because I have serious FOMO at times. but you see some cool things along the way. You see things you don't expect, things that confuse you. Like, I think one of your ratings in the past was like, those like side of the road tourist places, where you just find like weird stuff. All in all, you can say you went and you did it, and it wasn't a bad time. Your vacation, as far as like time off from work, went a little too fast, but you had a good time. Yeah, that's all I got.
That's fine. That's fine. You heard it here first from Rachel. Rachel, would you recommend this film to anybody?
I don't know. I feel like just because I am a movie person, I will watch pretty much everything. Just because, it's something that I've never seen, and even the worst movies bring a new aspect. They always give you something to think about, like Bad Taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It always brings something to the table, even if it's not, mind blowing and like amazing, and you would definitely watch it again. So I guess I would say, like, yeah, I would recommend, like, not a hard recommend, but to someone, to the people who like the shit that we like, like stupid horror and
stupid movies.
Not saying this was a stupid movie, but like, just people who aren't too hard of a critic. People who don't care if they get something, if they're watching something that's just amazing. Yeah, I would recommend it to those kind of people. But if you're someone who likes things to make sense, and movies to really, really, I mean, it dragged me in, but just great, amazing, over the top movies, then no, I would not recommend at all. But as with pretty much every movie we watch, and I think I say this on every single episode, to the right group of people, yeah, but not to everybody. No. What about you?
I understand. So I think that for the majority part, I agree. The issue with this is that there are multiple companion pieces with it.
I'd agree with that.
So if you to get the most out of this movie, you gotta do some research on some other stuff, and that hurts it in that sense of accessibility because not everyone's willing to do that.
Right. They don't really explain much.
As a giant fan of found footage, I know that you are not. I'm part of a found footage group on Facebook that posts way too much about Megan is missing. But as a huge fan of found footage, if you are a found footage fan, this is a must watch. You have to watch this movie.
Really?
It's for in that specific genre.
Okay, no,
in that specific genre, you have to watch this movie. This is going to be one of the best experiences for that because it's got a higher budget, it's got a higher tier of sensibility. You can follow the story along. Mm-hmm. The only thing that kind of drags it down for the most part is not knowing the context of the other things. If you know the context of the other things, you're going to have a great time.
Right.
As far as horror movies go, I mean, I would show it to a couple people here and there, but it does just depend. I would not recommend this to everybody because it's not everybody's cup of tea. Those are kind of my thoughts on it. I am curious. As I mentioned, Rachel is not a huge fan of found footage, but this is what our whole month is dedicated to.
I'm so excited.
we got a couple of great ones coming up that she's gonna love.
Gonna love February every year.
I'm going to, yeah. It's the month of love, people, and Rachel is going to love these movies. But
oh my gosh!
But we thank you guys so much for listening in. Please, give us a like, comment, subscribe. We thank you guys for listening as always. This is the UC Society podcast. My name is Michael.
And I'm Rachel.
And we thank you guys for listening.